Well then, welcome everyone. My name is Victor Kruger. I'm a real estate equity analyst at ABG Sundal Collier. I'm delighted to be moderating our 3 real estate companies that are presenting today. Starting with Eastnine, followed by Lunch, then Fastator, and finally Diös. We have Kęstutis Sasnauskas, who's been having a background within East Capital, and we have Britt-Marie Nyman, who has had 5 years of head of capital markets at Catella. And they started in 2017 and 2019 respectively. So as such, they have been part of the transformation journey that Eastnine has done from an investment company towards almost a pure play real estate company. I'm very excited to hear more and get more insights about the company today. So with that, welcome Kęstutis and Britt-Marie.
Okay, thank you very much. And I'm very delighted to have a possibility to actually present today our story and what we're doing. So if we have just a brief look at what Eastnine is, we're actually a Swedish listed real estate company. With one big difference, that all of our properties are actually in the Baltic states and Poland, so on the other side of the Baltic Sea. We run a very modern portfolio of 14 properties, total property value of around 600 million euros. And our properties have highest environmental certification on 89% of our floor plates. So basically, majority or a very vast majority is very modern, very centrally located, and a very nice property portfolio. Total lettable area is around 183,000 square meters, which puts us into markets like Vilnius as one of the largest office owners and managers today, with approximately total market share of around 12-13%. And since the very start, our vision was to actually create venues where people can meet, ideas can flow, and successful business can be developed. And we're working with a very nice and creative environments, and we always try to provide absolutely the best venues to our customers. If you look on the Baltics and why we find Baltics so exciting and Poland so exciting is actually the very big difference in terms of yield gap. When we look at our underlying businesses, most of our customers are actually internationals. It's a very international business. Our properties are located in the Baltics and of course in Poznan in Poland. So they are subject to local market conditions. The yields are significantly higher, and we're always at 200 to 300 basis points higher yields compared to the Nordic peers for similar type of location, similar type of property, and similar type of tenancy as such, which creates a significant gap. And of course, the financing cost is relatively similar. So the spread is probably one of the highest compared to our peers. Why we like Baltics? Of course, I talked a little bit about the yields that are significantly higher compared to the Western markets, but also it's a combination of higher yields and significantly lower rental levels. Of course, Malmö and Gothenburg would still be very significantly higher above our Baltic capitals, which makes it very exciting. So if you look on places like Vilnius, Riga, and Poznan primarily, we are 4 times lower rental levels compared to Stockholm. And significantly lower rental levels compared to any other capital city in the Nordics or bigger city. If you look, if you compare to any of the 10 largest cities, we have a variety of vacancies, and those statistics probably differ a little bit more compared to Stockholm. If we look on the total stock, there is a high vacancy in the Baltics. But if you look on the prime segment, vacancies are very low, and vacancies are higher in a secondary segment. So, and we are in the primary segment, so our vacancies are relatively low today and have been so for some time. We work quite a lot with sustainability certifying our properties. So if you look on this 89% of certification, these are shared between BREEAM Outstanding and LEED Platinum. These are the highest brackets. 11% is ongoing, and of course it changes all the time as we acquire new properties. If they are not certified, we immediately do the certifications of them. We score 92% in GRESB, which is a kind of ESG score, and it's a very widespread study, and we score very, very high. We are among top 20% best globally, and we score very close to our Nordic peers. We also are number 6 this year in Allbright's Gender Equality Index out of 360 companies listed on Stockholm Stock Exchange. So we score very high, and our employees consider Eastnine being a great place to work. We are also Great Place certified, which means also we are scoring very highly in those surveys. So if we look on our property portfolio as such, if you look on Lithuania, Latvia, and Poznan, basically 70%, closer to 70% is in Vilnius, 20% in Poznan, and around 10% in Riga. And here is our portfolio. So you can see it's very modern. If you look on the locations, it's very centrally located in the CBD area, and you can see the tenancies as well. We have one exciting development project in Vilnius right now, which is adjacent to our Trys complex. Actually, it's in this spot here, and we will see when we start developing. I think today the market is a bit turbulent in terms of pricing and deliveries and so on. But once that settles, we will kick off with that as well. In Riga, we are very centrally located along the main street called Kristiana Valdemara in the central part of Riga. So those properties even more central compared to Vilnius. And we have growing occupancy here. We had a bit of a higher vacancy primarily in Aloes Biroi, but now it's growing, and that was connected more to potential development of the Pine. Now when the Pine is delayed, we also leasing those premises out. And in Poznan, it's our newest acquisition. This year we acquired almost 40,000 square meters of very modern office space. It's fully let, and also we have very nice tenants, Allegro, Rockwool, and Arvato. Allegro is, for those who don't know, it's the 6th largest global e-com site. It's the Amazon of Eastern Europe, basically. So this is our tenancy distribution. We have, you recognize most of the names in terms of, most of them are Nordic players. The newest are, as I mentioned, Allegro. Rockwool is a Danish manufacturer of insulation. Wargaming is actually officially domiciled in Cyprus, but it's a company originating from Belarus, and actually that also moved part of their operations to the Baltics. So over to you, Britt-Marie.
Thank you. And we will continue with the quarter, the period, and some financials. We had a very positive quarter and period with a positive net letting for the third quarter in a row. We had a record high profit from property management, both during the quarter and the period. And as Kestutis said before, we received 5 stars within sustainability from GRESB. We continued working with certifications within sustainability, and we received the first certification for well-being in Valdemara Centers in Riga. We launched a PropTech innovation camp a couple of weeks ago in order to improve development within real estate sector, and we signed, this is perhaps the most important thing, after the end of the period, we signed a sale agreement for the investment in MFG. And as Victor said before, we used to be an investment entity. We are almost a real estate company today, but we have the investment in MFG. And the sale agreement was signed with the listed Russian investment company Sistema, the biggest one in Russia. The price close to 200 million euros. Of course, this is not easy. It's not easy to sign and close a deal like this. It's subject to several conditions outside our control, such as regulatory approvals and sanctions, but we are working on it, of course. We still expect this to be completed during 2022. It's important to remember that MFG continues to perform very well. It's a good company. What about the financials? They are very strong. The occupancy rate increased to above 94% during the quarter. We compare the third quarter with the second quarter, and this is due to a very positive net letting during this year. And the tenants is still moving in during the fourth quarter, so hopefully we will see even higher figures by year end. The surplus ratio increased to 92%. And this is an extremely high figure if you compare to companies, real estate companies working on the Swedish market. They are normally around 65-70%, and this is due to the high degree of triple net leases in Eastnine. And triple net leases is better in the Baltics and Poland than in Sweden. The property yield in the earning capacity improved up to 5.2%. Due to higher NOI, the net LTV properties a little bit lower due to amortizations. The interest coverage ratio improved due to higher NOI, and despite a higher average interest rate during the quarter. This is my favorite page, and it's because it's forward-looking. If we look into the earning capacity, we compare the situation by the end of September with the situation by the end of June. And it's not a prognosis, it's based on current agreements when it comes to lease agreements and loan agreements, and also certain assumptions like property costs and so on. Normally we can see a large improvement between different quarters if we acquire a new property, but we didn't acquire new properties during the third quarter. But we improved the occupancy rate during the quarter, and you can see that it has affected the vacancy value, which decreased since we are able to transfer the property costs to the tenants if the premises are occupied. But in the opposite direction, you know that the interest rates increased during the quarter, meaning higher interest expenses. But on the bottom line, the profit from property management improves, and it increases more than rental income and net operating income, and that's very important. A little bit about this financing structure, which is very stable. We only have 14% capital market financing. We have one bond maturing in July 2024. We have 5 different banks, and the share of green financing is improving up to 48%. If you look into the loan maturity and the interest maturity to the right, you can see that the loan maturity is 2.6 years by the end of September. And the first maturity, if you look at the dark blue bars, you can see that it's in the end of 23, in Q4 23 even. The average interest maturity is 2 years, and we have 71% of the interest-bearing liabilities fixed with interest swaps. So Kęstutis, over to you.
Yeah, so why do we think Eastnine is actually a compelling story? And this is basically 4 main reasons. Partially, we have a fantastic portfolio of very prime, very modern properties already established, with a very exciting region, which is growing rapidly and developing very rapidly. And again, a combination of higher yields, lower rental levels, and basically the similar kind of financing as we have in the Nordics. Those properties are leased by very stable and strong tenants with international businesses. So it is those properties are generating very strong and relatively stable, I would say, cash flows. We lead the way in terms of sustainability in the Baltics. We work very hard on improving our properties, even from the very good level and modern stock. We still continuously working on improving energy efficiency, improving all parameters of basically making our footprint to the climate as small as possible. And we have a fantastic journey ahead. The Baltic markets and the Polish markets are growing. There's convergence story going on all the time, every day. And we've seen over the years that actually these markets have been growing faster than the Nordics, faster than the developed markets, especially in case of Poland, significantly faster. Since basically the collapse of the Soviet Union, and it's continued growing. So we have a very, very exciting journey ahead, and we have quite ambitious growth plans. So on this, I would like to finish and open up for questions.
Thank you both. I want to start off with a current topic with inflation. It affects you in some different ways. You have above 20% inflation in Latvia and Lithuania. Then you have the EU inflation at around 10%. You have Polish inflation somewhere in between. Could you elaborate a little bit on how this impacts you as a company, first of all?
Of course, in a positive direction when it comes to the rental income, which is most important.
And are you certain how much of each could you sort of...
Yeah, all our contracts are linked to some kind of CPI. Around 2/3 of them are linked to the euro inflation and 1/3 to local inflation, and mainly as an annual average, not like 20%, even above 20% today. It's the average during the year normally. And some of the contracts, when it comes to the larger tenants, they are capped around 2, 3, 4%. And they are linked to the euro, but they are capped on average 3% perhaps. So we don't expect the increase to be like 10, 15 or 20%. It will be below 10%, somewhere between 5 and 10% in average. But this is not so problematic for us that we can't get like 15 or 20%, since we have these triple net leases, meaning that as long as the premises are occupied, the property costs isn't our problem. It's mainly the tenant's problem, since they pay for the property costs. So that's very important to remember. Yeah.
90% compared to more 60 or 70% in Sweden.
That's true.
Yeah, that's a big difference. Is your understanding then that tenants can take these costs to a larger degree?
We think they definitely can take the energy cost, and I think now we probably see a bit of a slowdown of those coming further. I mean, we don't know, but this is at least the tendency we experienced the latest in the most recent weeks, at least. What is probably challenging, of course, when you have such a high inflation, it implies salaries are growing and so on, and the loss of kind of efficiency and competitiveness in those markets. So far, I mean, despite higher inflation compared to any other market around, the Baltics have evolved and actually were gaining market share in terms of global economy. So, which also indicates that they have been quite good in creating value-add products that are exported. It's mainly services. So, from that perspective, it's a little bit of a concern. But of course, high inflation is always worrisome if it stays for a longer time.
Yeah. You talked about vacancy levels as well, and they've come down quite significantly overall in both Latvia and Lithuania.
Yeah.
What is the impact from this on net leasing and occupancy rates going forward?
I mean, we expect to have a further improvement of the occupancy during the period, during this fourth quarter as well. And later we'll probably reach a level where it will be very difficult to improve the net lease out, because we will be at a very high rate at the moment. So we'll reach.
So net leasing, to clarify, is new leases minus terminated leases.
Exactly,
yeah,
but when you're at 90, close to
95,
96%, it's difficult to increase that.
Yeah. And to mention as well, you want to have around 5% vacant in order to be able to move around.
There is always 5% need to match the movements and so on.
You also mentioned collaborations that you launched in Q3 with Rocket and Sandbox.
Yeah.
Could you, from that, sort of dig a little bit more deeper into what the business climate is like in Lithuania?
No, I think the idea follows very much a recent development of fintech industry that has been actually quite successful in the Baltics and primarily in Lithuania, where basically market participants, including the central bank, opened up and allowed for innovation within banking technologies. We try to replicate something similar by encouraging young entrepreneurs, young students or startups actually to come up with new ideas within the real estate technology segment. And we see huge potential because still, despite having relatively modern systems, there is so much more to do of innovation, automation, that can actually improve the performance of buildings. And most of those solutions are still not very present if you look on the overall stock. So our ambition is actually to create a kind of environment to support creating the environment for those kind of new technologies, new ideas to be developed. And it's the first initiative. We'll see how it will develop, but it's just our contribution to improve further the industry.
Then you're mentioning the Polish market as an interesting growth opportunity. First, are you considering any certain geographies in Poland?
We started with Poznan. We would like to expand in Poznan as well. And as I mentioned, we always try to create strong hubs in every single particular market when we enter. Poznan was very easy to understand for us to start with, and we really like that market. So we probably grow in Poznan in the future, and look probably more towards Warsaw as well.
Because you mentioned how it compares to Lithuania and Latvia in terms of rental levels and property prices, yields. But how is it in terms of other characteristics like GDP growth and employment, urban density?
We see Poznan is actually the second richest city in Poland after Warsaw. If you look on the GDP per capita, it has a lot of industries around. So it's the suburban area of Poznan is actually similar to the whole country of Latvia. So this is still looks like a regional city and the sixth largest regional city. Fifth or sixth? Fifth largest regional city, but still with a very, very sound business around it. So there's plenty of opportunities and plenty of developments, big factories. And we see also a number of tenants that, or our customers that we see in the Baltics, we see them as well in Poland. So from us, it's a very natural step.
And then just to touch base on your projects as well, because we've been talking a little bit about the other parts, but you run 2 in Riga and 1 in Vilnius, and now the business climate it's challenging. Are there any? What is like the main 1 or 2 things one should look out for in order to see hints of that you might be starting up these projects again?
I think in Riga we would like to see a stronger development in the rental levels. And a stronger demand coming up. In Vilnius, demand is existent, and there are certain developments taking place around our properties, which we're very happy because the location is getting strengthened. And in Vilnius, it's more about basically, stability in the construction business and construction costs and so on that we would like to see.
And lower construction costs.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. It seems to be we have time for 1 more question or so. Thank you. I think it's worth pointing forward because since we're approaching the end of the year, you had a recent press release about MFG. It could be there is speculation, but we can only speculate whether or not this deal will come through with regulatory agencies in Russia and so forth. But you didn't mention that. I mean, in 2021, the dividends and realized gains from the cash gains from MFG corresponded to around 30% of your cash earnings from properties.
Wow.
And last 12 months is 60%. So it's even if you don't sell it now, it's still a pretty good cash cow.
It's a very strong underlying business and it's a very nice company. The challenge today, of course, is that due to current situation, there is a limitation on how much dividends we can take, and those limitations will probably not ease as it looks today in the very close future. So, for us, selling is definitely a very important step to do it, and of course, we need to focus as well. So, for us, it's a very important move.
But we still receive a small amount of dividends each month, like 90,000 euros.
Yeah.
Very clear. Thanks to everyone who listened in. I hope you get a more wholesome picture of Eastnine than you had prior to the presentation. And you might be around if there are any more questions from the audience afterwards.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.